I'm Patrick Watson, I'm an astrologer, and today we're going to talk about 10 different types of Virgo. So you were born with the sun in Virgo, the sign of the perfectionist, the parsimonious, and the practical, the hypochondriac, the hypertensive, and the hyperventilating, the crafty, the critical, the calculating, the fussy, the fastidious, and fault-finding. When the sun is in Virgo, the Earth is in between seasons, and so all of the mutable signs, including Virgo, are in-between states, in transition. And the transitional nature of Virgo is the resumption of practical duties, a movement from vacation time with the sun in Leo to going back to school or work with the sun in Virgo. The symbol of Virgo is a virgin holding a sheaf of wheat, and this is a throwback to when the harvest would be collected in this time of year to take stock and prepare for the coming winter, at least in the northern hemisphere, but it also speaks to the practical, unglamorous nature of work. Tilling the earth, planting a seed, cultivating it, trying to make something grow. And we even celebrate Labor Day every year while the sun is in Virgo. How exactly we know she's a virgin, I don't know. Maybe she has a V card, a purity ring, maybe she thinks you only technically lose your virginity if it's vaginal. Who knows? In any case, I think virginity is more or less a stand-in for the notions of purity and detachment from passions. After all, Mercury is the ruler of Virgo, and Mercury is impersonal, abstract, neutral. For Mercury, relationships are more about trade and exchange rather than affection. So making fun of Virgo for not getting any ass is to fail to grasp Virgo's motivations. Is to fail to entertain the possibility that perhaps there are just some things which are more practical and pressing than your throbbing loins. From their perspective anyway. Virgo is an earth sign, unlike Gemini, which is the other Mercury-ruled sign. So Virgo is a bit more grounded than Gemini. Virgos are known to be more down to earth, concerned with practical considerations, facts and figures, even known to be nitpicky and fussy, fidgety and neurotic, critical and discerning, hard workers, organizing and making things efficient. It's a sign often associated with the medical field, health and nutrition, and more specifically rules the digestive system. This is interesting because the digestive system is what sorts out what the body does and doesn't need, a very Virgoan process in the body. And as we'll see, Virgo's associations with purity, health, and nutrition come out in some interesting ways. One way to distinguish between different types of Virgos is to look at what planets are aspecting the sun. So today we're only considering one aspect, the conjunction. So this is when two celestial bodies are conjunct at the same degree of longitude in the sky. So different planets conjunct the sun in Virgo equals a different type of Virgo. Sun conjunct Moon in Virgo. Someone born with the Sun conjunct Moon suggests that one's private life is wrapped up with their public persona, someone who wears their heart on their sleeve, as it were. And Fiona Apple was born on the day of a new moon in Virgo, and there are a few features about her life that stick out as pretty Virgoan. For example, Virgo is often associated with food, digestion, health, and nutrition. Fiona Apple has had a very public and complicated relationship with food, being a vegan and having endured an eating disorder. With Mercury ruling Virgo, she has a very nervous energy about her that helps her songwriting, but unfortunately, she has to suffer from obsessive-compulsive disorder, which is a decidedly Virgoan malady to have to make sure that everything's in the right place. And beyond that, with her moon conjunct her sun, she is unflinchingly honest in her opinions and feelings, in her songwriting, in her performances, and in her interviews. Anyone remember her saying the world is bullshit when she went to collect an award? Only a Virgo can find something to criticize when they're being honored for their work. Sun conjunct Mercury in Virgo. Mercury is the planet of communication, language, and writing. Virgo is actually one of Mercury's best signs. So Samuel Johnson was born with the Sun conjunct Mercury in Virgo, and what did he do? He was famous for writing the dictionary. It took him nearly 10 years, painstakingly collecting, methodically alphabetizing, and accurately defining every word in the English language, like a true Virgo. He released his Dictionary of the English Language on April 15th, 1755, when the North Node was on his sun and when Jupiter was approaching his sun in Virgo. Now that is someone with Sun conjunct Mercury in Virgo. Sun conjunct Venus in Virgo. Venus is beauty and the arts and nice stuff. And Blake Lively was born with the Sun conjunct Venus in Virgo, along with a few other planets. And yeah, she's involved in a lot of artsy things. She's an actress, a singer, a dancer, but not every actress has the Sun conjunct Venus in Virgo. So what's so Virgo about Blake Lively? Well, we don't know a whole lot about her personally, but I do think it's interesting that besides acting, the main other thing she is known for is that she wants to basically be a celebrity homemaker. She wants to open restaurants, she wants to have an interior decorating company, and she's also planning to launch an online business selling cute handmade shit that she's personally selected. So Venus in her life seems to be beautifying things in the realm of Virgo: nutrition, textiles, businesses, crafts, etc. Basically, she wants to be like Martha Stewart, who she says is her idol. She's even appeared on Martha Stewart's show to bake some cakes and stuff. So, guess where Martha Stewart's Venus is? Yeah, it's in Virgo. Sun conjunct Mars in Virgo. Idris Elba was born with the Sun conjunct Mars in Virgo, and he's an actor who keeps finding himself in Marsy roles in Marsy genres, such as action and crime. He played a drug kingpin in The Wire, a detective in Luther, a general in Pacific Rim, an antagonist in Star Trek Beyond, the gunslinger in The Dark Tower, but the most dramatic manifestation of his Sun conjunct Mars aspect is his brutally honest mini-documentary called Idris Elba Fighter, where he filmed himself training for a whole year to fulfill a childhood wish to become a professional fighter. The show follows him through his training with world masters who he continually disappoints. The only thing he consistently impressed them with was his work ethic, par for the course for a Virgo. And he had his first professional fight on October 28, 2016, when the North Node was on his Sun and Mars, and when Mars was on his North Node. He won against a more experienced fighter. Now, while this is a very literal example of Sun conjunct Mars, there is another side to Sun conjunct Mars in Virgo. Donald Watson was born with the Sun conjunct Mars in Virgo, and he was inspired to become a vegan after seeing the slaughter of pigs on the farm that he grew up on. And he later became a fearless advocate for veganism, animal rights, and pacifism. And the only reason I bring up Donald Watson is because Sun conjunct Jupiter in Virgo. Donald Watson started the Vegan Society, the first vegan organization in the world, on November 5th, 1944, when Jupiter was in Virgo, conjunct his Sun and Mars in Virgo. And of course, veganism is a Virgo thing. Being a vegan means you have to be like a Virgo. You have to be assiduously monitoring your intake of food to avoid ingesting animal products. Like the body's digestive system, Virgos are telling us what we should and shouldn't put in our bodies. So naturally, a vegan society would start when Jupiter is in Virgo, conjunct the Virgo Sun of the guy who started it. And speaking of veganism and whole foods, guess what else came about under a Jupiter in Virgo period? Well, the organic supermarket chain Whole Foods Market was started on September 20th, 1980, when the Sun was conjunct Jupiter and Saturn in Virgo. And of course, this is a store that exclusively sells foods without artificial preservatives, colors, flavors, sweeteners, and hydrogenated fats. Sun conjunct Jupiter in Virgo reflects his profitability. Sun conjunct Saturn in Virgo reflects his corporate nature, and together represents, well, a very successful business organized around a very Virgo-like product. Not just food, but organic food. Now, there is another group that is very concerned about what we put into our bodies. On September 9th, 1992, the abstinence group True Love Waits was formed when the Sun was conjunct Jupiter in Virgo. And this is a whole organization devoted to keeping teenagers from getting into the hanky-panky with little rings, little purity rings that say True Love Waits on them. And so it's almost too literal. I mean, what is the sign of Virgo? It's literally the image of a virgin. So when Jupiter went through Virgo, we got an organization that literally exalts the idea of being pure, clean, and virgin. Sun conjunct Saturn in Virgo. In many ways, Saturn is the antithesis of Jupiter. Where Jupiter is happy and optimistic, Saturn's a bummer. Where Jupiter is praise and honors, Saturn is criticism. The conservative news commentator Bill O'Reilly was born with the Sun conjunct Saturn in Virgo, and he's a pretty Saturnian Virgo. He insisted on having a Virgoan no-spin zone on his show, even as he repeatedly descended to shouting down and name-calling guests he disagreed with. He ended up kind of embodying this archetype of the conservative blowhard TV host, so much so that he was essentially the basis of Stephen Colbert's alter ego and television show The Colbert Report. Only a Saturnian figure like O'Reilly could spur someone else's entire career based on his own faults and shortcomings. So Stephen Colbert's Pluto is on Bill O'Reilly's Saturn, so it's kind of funny because Colbert's power has definitely drawn from O'Reilly's blind spots and weaknesses, and there are many. Sun conjunct Uranus in Virgo. Uranus is technological innovations and disruptions. From 1961 to 1969, most of the inventions of this time were decidedly Virgoan. We got the pocket calculator, which is an electronic mercurial device. We got ATMs, which was a revolution in banking, making money accessible 24 hours a day. We got zip codes in the US, where the country was split up and organized by number to make our mailing systems more efficient. That's Mercury. We got touch-tone telephones, making it easier to punch in numbers to talk to someone. The last Uranus in Virgo period was pretty remarkable because it also conjoined Pluto in this period, and this is obviously why, for reasons that could fill hundreds of books, the decade of the 1960s stands out even in a century that featured 2 global wars. It was a super-powered Uranus in Virgo period in the 60s. So the 1960s was also when we got the first personal computer, the basic computer programming language to use it, and the very beginnings of the internet back when it was known as ARPANET, which has utterly transformed the world we live in. This is Virgo on steroids. Also, I mentioned how Virgo is associated with the digestive system, and it was in 1965 when gastric bypass surgery was invented. So this is literally when most of your stomach is sectioned off and your small intestine is reattached in order to change your physiological response to food. So some of the technological innovations specifically had to do with the part of the body Virgo rules. Weird, right? And when it comes to health in general, the 60s were when Medicaid and Medicare were established, American healthcare programs for the poor and the elderly. Medicaid and Medicare were created when President LBJ signed them into law, and at the time that he did it, the Moon and Venus were applying to Uranus and Pluto in Virgo. What sign was President Lyndon Baines Johnson? He was a Virgo. So Virgo has all these associations with cleanliness, orderliness. So another development of the 1960s Uranus-Pluto conjunction in Virgo was environmentalism. One example of a Sun-Uranus conjunction in Virgo stands out to me. Van Jones was born with the Sun conjunct Uranus in Virgo, and he's an attorney and news commentator whose expertise is in environmental justice and economic issues. He's famous for writing a book called The Green Collar Economy, and he was an advisor to the Obama White House on green jobs. So yeah, with the Sun conjunct Uranus in Virgo, he's standing out on these Virgoan issues of the environment and the economy. Sun conjunct Neptune in Virgo. Neptune is the planet of mysticism, fantasy, and imagination. So what does it do when it enters the very practical and down-to-earth sign of Virgo? Well, Warren Buffett was born with the Sun conjunct Neptune in Virgo, and he's one of the richest people in the world due to his prudent investing. His prowess in investing is so legendary that he's earned the very Neptunian nicknames of the Wizard, Oracle, and the Sage. It's important to note that obviously not every person who is born with the Sun conjunct Neptune in Virgo can be a billionaire, but decidedly his ability to invest wisely is almost magical. And like a true Virgo, he's also known for still living a fairly frugal and modest lifestyle, and he's critical of lavish expenditures of other wealthy people despite his own extraordinary wealth. With the Sun conjunct Neptune in Virgo, he's a visionary, a mystic guru within the Virgoan realm of finances and investing. Neptune is also the planet of drugs and chemicals. Just a week after Neptune first ingressed into Virgo on September 21st, 1928, Scottish scientist Alexander Fleming accidentally discovered penicillin, which kicked off the antibiotics revolution. And the symbol of Virgo is a virgin holding wheat. And an actual theory of how mold spores ended up on Fleming's petri dish was from a moldy sandwich he had eaten that week in the lab. So, with Neptune and Virgo, the Virgin's bread that she's holding, I guess, got moldy and gave us antibiotics. And antibiotics have allowed everyone to be able to get better from bacterial infections, doing everyone a real solid. Unfortunately, Virgo is also associated with the intestines, and the most common side effect of penicillin is that you don't get many solids. Pluto is a planet of extremes, taking things way too far. Michael Jackson was born when the Sun was conjunct Pluto in Virgo, which comes across in a few ways. He was a true Virgo in that he was very meticulous about his craft. He was an ultra-perfectionist about his singing, his recordings, his dance moves, all the details of the minor and major aspects of his performances. He even tried to perfect his face with, ghastly results. And like many Virgos, he was very particular, especially about his diet. His personal chef said he was a vegetarian who didn't like vegetables and had a sweet tooth but insisted that he never eat sugar. And there are all kinds of stories from his maids about his peculiar grooming habits, ranging from the unusual to the pretty gross, and ultimately his various addictions to medicines kind of did him in eventually. But I'm not sure what's true and what's not about his personal life, but I think we can at least see that people with the Sun conjunct Pluto in Virgo tend towards extremes in various domains associated with Virgo. Sun conjunct multiple planets in Virgo. Sometimes you get situations where more than one planet is conjunct the Sun, so you have to combine their interpretations. In fact, a few of my examples already included a couple of planets being in the mix, but one example of someone who has multiple planets conjunct together in Virgo is Rachel Ray. She was born with the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Uranus, and Pluto in Virgo. And of course, she's this television personality who's famous for her 30-minute meals and her efficient shortcut methods of preparing meals on a budget. Are we making any connections here with Blake Lively and Martha Stewart with Venus in Virgo, maybe? Rachel Ray also has a talk show where she cooks with celebrities and she features segments with health and lifestyle experts, and she has all these business interests with various food products, and she has her own interior design product collection, and she runs a non-profit which teaches families to cook, provides nutritional assistance, and funds cooking education. So yeah, we can see all these different strands. We can see all these different planetary combinations kind of combining across the same domain of Virgo in all these different ways. Now that you have some idea of what Virgo is about, I now have to tell you about the most Virgo thing that ever Virgoed. It's a website that was started on September 15th, 1997, when the Sun was in Virgo and while Mercury was in its best sign of Virgo. The purpose of this website is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. This website is, of course, Google. There are a couple of things about the date Google was started that make it really stand out. Number one, the Sun is conjunct the North Node and it was less than 2 days away from a lunar eclipse opposite the Sun, so Google was founded pretty close to a pretty important celestial event. But I'd also like to bring attention to Mercury, the ruler of Virgo, the planet of communication, information, and messages. Not only is Mercury in its own sign, its best sign, Virgo, but September 15th, 1997 was also the day of Mercury's maximum western elongation from the Sun. What this means is that Mercury would have been at its brightest in the sky on that day, making a dramatic appearance in the morning, rising ahead of the Sun. Not only that, but Mercury was only 6 days away from having station direct, which is a dramatic moment in Mercury's cycle when it resumes its regular motion, acting as expected. In other words, this is a phenomenal Mercury, and this is the website that practically owns the internet. And we can sort of see this from the fact that Mercury is also tightly square Pluto in Sagittarius, another sign associated with expansive realms of knowledge. So it's Pluto is also a planet of extremes and often has themes of control. So, we think of how powerful Google is in our world, and it's pretty evident from the position of Mercury and its configuration with Pluto and the prominence and brilliance of the condition of Mercury that, it does these things very well. Just thinking about it, who doesn't have a Gmail account? Who doesn't use Chrome? Millions of people own Android phones made by Google. Google's digitized nearly all the world's books. You're watching this video on YouTube, which is owned by Google. So Google, like a true Virgo, has absolutely organized the world's information and made it universally accessible and useful. And that is so Virgo, I can't even Virgo right now. If you like this episode, please give it a like and share on your social media. Make sure you don't miss my next episode by subscribing to my YouTube channel. And if you want to keep seeing more content like this, consider joining all the other awesome people supporting me on Patreon, even if it's just $1. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And to all Virgos out there watching this month, happy birthday. See you next time.